We are live and streaming across the province of Ontario. Welcome to the 2022 FEO Energize Virtual Conference. Tuesdays and Thursdays in the month of March. 25 plus speakers. Dozens of important topics. Designed to motivate and inspire you to make a triumphant return from COVID. It's time to reconnect, reimagine, and refocus. Let's get energized. This portion of the 2022 FEO Energize Conference is brought to you by the Province of Ontario, Destination Ontario, OLG, and SmartServe Ontario. Please welcome our host for the 2022 FEO Energize Virtual Conference. It's our CEO, Dave McNeil.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to a kind of dreary Thursday. We hope to brighten up your day. At this time, I just want to throw out a number of thank yous to everybody that made this conference possible. It's no small feat with a small team to do what we've done, and everybody should be recognized. So first off, I'd like to thank the FEO team, Deb Mann, Jay Nyhouse, and Pinky Etter for all of their hard work with everything we do here at FEO. Could not do it without you guys. Thank you very much. We've got a very dedicated award conference committee. Our chair, Mahoney LaPierre, our technical wizard, Landon Logie, Tina Myers, Ann Barker, Amanda Murray, our awards chair, Bonnie Baker, and Deb Bremner. Special thanks to all of our speakers, our presenters, and all of our award winners. Thank you very much for making this a big success so far and as we move forward. At this time, we've got a great session lined up on sponsorship, and our good friend Brad McCabe is going to lead that session. So I'm going to ask Brad to do a brief introduction of himself and then introduce his panelists, and let's get at it. Brad.
Hey, thanks so much, Dave. Happy to be here, and really happy to have Victoria and Nick join in the conversation on this. So I'm Brad McCabe. I'm the managing partner and co-founder of Sponsor Circle. We focus on bringing brands and partners together using technology and can assist with all elements of your sponsorship process, from strategy to actually finding the right partners who are investing in your space. And I will pass it off to Victoria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria Mahoney, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Partnerships for Harmony Marketing. We're a boutique agency in Toronto, but we also co-produce festivals and events on Toronto's waterfront. So the world's largest rubber duck came, and that was kind of put us on the map for the Redpath Waterfront Festival. And then we also do a winter event called Sugar Shack, which is all about maple syrup. So thanks for having me.
Nick.
Awesome. Excited to be with you all this morning. I'm Nick Lawson, co-founder of a company called SQWAD. Basically what we do is we really look to drive participation and activation for sponsors, mainly at sporting events, but also at other events as well. We've done events and festivals as well, but digital activations like trivia, scratch and wins to really drive ROI and engagement through digital activations.
Fantastic. Yeah, and today we're really looking at how the landscape's changed. Sponsorship has been done very traditionally in a number of fashions, and COVID has really impacted that. And I think it's important to kind of look back at what you were doing in the past, what we can be doing moving forward, and how that platform has changed, what approaches you need to walk through. Looking back at the most recent Canadian sponsorship landscape study in 2019, $2 billion was being spent in Canada in sponsorship. Only 13% of that is going into the festival space. So everybody on here is competing for roughly $260 million in sponsorship. And COVID has shifted where dollars have gone, and that's going to be more competitive moving forward. So I think it's really timely to think about how you're approaching your sponsorship and what assets you have available. So from Sponsor Circle's perspective, we kind of look at your sponsorship engagement and your platform and what you should be moving forward comes in 5 different areas. One is your equity, the other is storytelling, then moving into engaging your stakeholders, reporting back, and then the last one is getting promoted. But today, we're working with Victoria and Nick. We're going to focus on the first 4 areas, and I think those pieces will help you move your sponsorship program this year and really get you engaged for coming years. So I think the first area is equity, and my definition of equity is just what do you have to offer that distinguishes you as an organization from all of the other organizations that are competing for those sponsorship dollars. If you tell everybody, we have everybody coming, and you become very vanilla and very generic, it makes it hard for a sponsor to identify you as a specific audience activation that they want to go for. So maybe I'll start it with you, Victoria. How can properties work to define their equity offering, and how do you do that for the events you work with?
Yeah, for sure. So you can do a full asset valuation. You can go to a company, get them to look at everything you have to offer as a festival or event, all down to where the logos are and pre-promotion and how many people are in your e-database and all those types of things, which can be very extensive, but very costly. Or you can do it on your own. And especially with COVID, look at how your event is shaping, how it's changing, and see what do you currently have to offer a sponsor. So do you have an e-database that they could promote on? What are your socials looking like? Do you have physical space? So I deal with a lot of experiential marketing companies. If you've seen me talk on FEO before, you'll know that that's kind of my specialty. So I look at it as a producer in the physical space. What do I have on site that makes my space very unique? And to a sponsor, that could be very valuable. So for example, the festivals that I produce, we do not have a lot of flat cement space. And this is very exciting to a sponsor in specifically the auto realm. We've had so many people come to me and say, we want to do test drives on your festival site, and there's no possible way. However, a festival that has a massive parking lot, which could be perfect for an auto sponsor to come and say, we're going to set up for Jeep, for example. We're going to set up some really cool obstacles. We're going to have a really cool thing for people to see on site. We'll cross promote it. And we're going to have, this big test drive space on your festival property. Now that's something that could never happen for me, but looking at our assets and saying, we actually have a lot of cool grass mounds. So what could we do on there? We've done photo backdrops. We've done cool swings and benches. So I look at it from both the, what do you have from a benefit perspective? So marketing, promotion, social, PR, but also what do I have physically at my event that could be really unique and interesting to a sponsor or an experiential marketing partner. So yeah.
Nick, you come at it from the digital perspective. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and then Victoria's sort of spot on. I think the biggest thing I see wrong in sponsorship, whether it's digital or in person, is basically not looking at what assets you have and how you're differentiated. I mean, as you sort of stated, there's tons of events, there's tons of properties vying for these sponsorship dollars. If you come at it and say, hey, look, we have, this many following on social, we have this many, we have this layout, we have a parking lot. If that's going to be the same as everybody else, you're not going to win those dollars, right? You're not going to be able to differentiate yourself. From a digital perspective, what we see how, how is your audience and how is for us mainly in sports, game day a little bit different, right? So I always bring up the Portland Winterhawks, their WHL team in Portland, Oregon. Hockey is not crazy followed within Portland, Oregon. You have the Trailblazers, you have the Timbers there, but the Winterhawks have done an amazing job of understanding who their customers are and the intimacy, right? So for example, the Portland Trailblazers will bring in 20 to 30,000 fans a night, right? If the Winterhawks competed with the Trailblazers purely on reach, they would lose, right? What they've done masterfully for a lot of big sponsors is say, look, we don't reach as many people, but the people who we do reach are really important. Their families, they're close-knit. They have more affinity for, the organization, maybe than some other properties or festivals or sports teams in the area. And what they're able to do then is create unique activations that couldn't be done maybe at some of these bigger properties. So for example, they have a windmere corner where basically it's open season, it's right rinkside. As long as you buy a windmere beer from the bar there and you're the first one at that corner, you can stand there and watch the game. No matter if you're in the nosebleeds seats, you can come down, and as long as you're drinking a beer there, you can sit there and experience the game ringside, right? That's a huge piece that they've been able to incorporate to be able to get Windmere Brewing, which invests in a lot of different sponsorship realms. But, you know, think about it from a, you know, an NBA perspective. Is Windmere ever going to get the ability to have a fan or, you know, 10 fans, which I think seats in the area, be able to come down to courtside, drink a beer and watch the game there? You know, they would have to actually reconstruct, you know, how they set up that area, and Windmere would probably have to pay a lot of money. So I think the big thing is especially if you're a smaller event, how can you really stand out? What are the assets that you have? And then really understanding your audience, right? To kind of go off your point, Brad, of storytelling, how can you make sure that your assets and your equity fit into the story that you're going to tell? That's not going to be the same story that everyone else is telling, because then you're commoditizing your assets, right? You're basically saying, I want to compete against this on price instead of I want to compete on this towards your sponsor goals, which is, you know, for a car dealership, probably awareness, signups, and hopefully meetings, right? So it's one of those things where you can actually command a high price for your sponsorship assets purely because you understand what the sponsor wants and you figured out how your assets are really going to fit into those goals and reach those goals, even if it is a smaller amount of audience that you're reaching.
I think that becomes a big concern and a big topic of conversation I hear from a lot of the, you know, festivals that I deal with, especially if they're a small county festival, regional festival where they're bringing in maybe 10, 20,000 people versus, you know, a big city event that's going to bring in, you know, a couple 100,000. It's how do you compete on reach? Because you can't. So developing those really kind of unique offerings that can't be delivered in a big city become a huge element. I know, Victoria, you've worked with stuff in around Toronto, but then outside. How have you differentiated your offerings?
Well, we've worked very closely so we did plan provincial events across Ontario, and we would work very closely with the host organization there, the host city. But when we've done tours, so for Redpath, for example, they've toured throughout Ontario, and the activation that they brought to each city would be different depending on what market they were in. And so if they had a certain product that they wanted to get out in, you know, shout out to Amherstburg because we've done an event there, or Midland, right? Cottage country might be a different ask and a different pitch than in Toronto, where they might just want to hand out as much product as they want. They're already on all the shelves in the stores, but maybe there's, a certain connection they can make in one of those cities that, you know, we want to get into this specific store in Midland, let's say, and help kind of facilitate those discussions with those host organizations or host cities. Same with dealerships. We did a whole tour with Hyundai. And so they had the local dealers come together, and each port had a different Hyundai activation. So if you went to one event in Toronto, you're not going to see the same activation because it's different dealers. They've got different offerings. So that's kind of how I've had the experience with that in sort of different locations.
And then from an audience perspective, you know, defining who's coming, how detailed do you get?
With the sponsor pitch, you mean?
Yeah.
So it's hard because I have two mindsets. From the XM side of things, experiential marketing side of things, we work with them to say, who are you trying to reach out to? Some people say we just want the broadest audience possible. I know as a festival and event producer, so I'm wearing multiple hats, but I understand that it's hard sometimes to define your audience. I am a festival that wants anybody and everybody. We're a free event, we're non-ticketed, we have 2 kilometers of activation. You know, we target kids, we target families, we target millennials, Gen Z, everything. So it's very hard to define to a sponsor when you say, we have everybody. However, some sponsors want that. So I'll have a sponsor say to me, yep, we just want to hand out 10,000 products during the weekend. And I'll say, great. And then another sponsor will say, no, we're actually looking for women age 25 to 54. And so I'll look at what programs I have at my event that could be a fit and then offer them that program. So we had one year, we had Schick razors. They wanted to do a 2-story activation where they handed out razors, and we put them in our beach park, which was a whole Pride beach party theme. And so it's really working with the sponsor. And I know that, you know, we'll get into kind of discovery sessions and more in kind of our storytelling, but we really try to do discovery sessions with each sponsor to say, who are you trying to target? And let's find a customized package that will work with that, even though our overall festival markets to everybody, if that makes sense.
And I guess on the digital side, Nick, you can really focus on, you know, specific audiences. Do you find that you know, your clients are using that to just go after one group, or are they doing it more of a, you know, a butter on bread approach?
Yeah, you know, I think the biggest thing is, I mean, everybody has data, right? Like, I mean, honestly, you can go to your Facebook page right now, click on for your company page, click on insights and see who follows you, right? So, you know, everybody has access to that. You know, I'm intrigued. What we've been seeing a lot of is, you know, demographics are great, age, gender, things like that. But we've seen sponsors really gravitate towards recently have been sort of the habits, right? So it's one of those things of, you know, if there's a downtown team, right? Do you reach people from a suburban area? Are they driving into games? Okay, what's the most likely path that they're probably going to drive through? Are they driving by one of your establishments, right? Will they do that on their way home? Okay, great. Here's a great data point. You know, X amount of our fans are coming from come from the, you know, whatever suburb area. There's 3 locations on, you know, 4 different routes on the way home. Let's do a buy one, get one free. And let's really push those people to redeem those, you know, on their way home. And those are kind of data points that, you know, almost bring context, right? I mean, I think a lot of audiences is conveying to your sponsor why you should invest in us, more so than just, hey, you know, again, coming from a sports realm, hey, we're exciting, you know, we're going to get a lot of fans here, we're going to get a lot of fans within the city here. It's really understanding that I understand your business goal, I really understand who you're trying to reach, and how can we look at our audiences to find certain things that enable us to, you know, reach your sponsor goal the quickest or most efficiently. So from a digital perspective, you know, again, there's no problem putting your demographics in there. I mean, a lot of sponsors want to understand who you're reaching, but I think a lot of times, especially with the data that we have today, if you can build a case study for them, let's say it is, you know, let's say it's an insurance company. If you can build a case study that, you know, you're reaching young people who are just starting families, right? And you know that because you have a lot of people or acceleration signing up for your family fund package, right? Now all of a sudden you're understanding, okay, great. This is something I can bring to an insurance company to where, you know, these people are looking at life insurance. They may be looking at, you know, new boosted medical insurance, whatever that is. And, you know, obviously here in the States, we have to worry about that just because we have to purchase our sort of medical insurance. But I mean, that's sort of the bigger thing there is, how can you build context to where your data is really pushing the deal over the line, because you're really understanding, okay, your goal is to reach this demographic, but also this place in life, or this place that our customers are going to be creating a habit. Again, getting to the event, going away from the event, what are those habits and how can I tap into that? Just because it makes your case study so much stronger for saying, hey, this is why you should spend an additional $50,000 with me. And for a brand, all of a sudden you're now saying, okay, that makes total sense. I wanted to reach families. Here's a clear path of how we can do that based on these data points. Now I can go back to my CMO, or now I can go back to my CEO and justify, hey, why are we spending $50,000 on an extra $50,000 on a festival? Well, here's the data points they give me. Okay, wow, that's, you know, that's intriguing to me. I see this event in a totally different light now because, you know, it's not just the male-female breakdown. It's really diving into the data and going back to equity. How is your audience unique, and how can you uniquely reach them through the assets you build that can really help you upsell or even help you close a sponsor that, you know, you may have never been able to close before.
And I think that really links well into, you know, the next conversation about storytelling, and we've already kind of leaned into that. I find a lot of people, they build a deck because they've always been told you need to have a deck, and it's a generic deck, and they push that out as first point of conversation with any sponsor. And I think 99.9% of those probably get put into the delete box immediately, just because there's been no context for it. And we've talked about discovery calls and getting to know what the client needs, what the brand needs. But I also think you've kind of walked through the process there, Nick, of what's the path that your audience is taking, and being able to think about that, pretty thoughtfully, to say, okay, beyond just being a logo on a billboard on site, what else do you offer, and how can you extend that experience? I know we did a project with Parkinson's Canada, and they were looking at their national walk and how all the different elements of their walk were, and they've always sold the presence on site. But one of the things we were able to help them define was every single person who was identified as having Parkinson's was going through a life change. Now, what were those life change events? They were going to have to look at their financial situation. They were going to have to look at their living situation. They were looking at, what's my mobility going to be? Do I need a bigger car, a different car? And then the other piece was, they know that their physical abilities are going to, be worse as it gets on. So they've got their bucket list. So now they want to do all this travel, and that helped define the different verticals and a justification for why sponsors should come on beyond just being a logo on site. But it's that storytelling piece that I think really a lot of people just don't take the time to think about. So Victoria, when you're building a conversation with a potential brand, how much of it is you walking a brand through what they could do on site versus them saying, okay, this is what I want to do, how can you deliver on it?
Yeah, so we always start with a discovery session, as I've said, before. And that really is, we're not coming into that completely, blind. Like we're coming in with our research done. We're coming in to see how that brand is showing up. Like right now, we're seeing what other properties that brand is sponsoring. But we also have, and this goes back into the asset valuation, we know what we could offer the partner. So we, internally chat, do our research, but then we say, instead of us pitching you something that might be totally off, we want to have a discovery session to see how your objectives have changed, if it's a sponsor that's come on before, or what your objectives are. Because to be honest, the public, like things that you can find on Google, and if you go to a company's website and you see what they normally sponsor, that might not be that might not be what their objectives are this year. Websites are not as updated, things happen. So we would go to the discovery call with all of these potential packages, but really we're asking, what are you looking for? What kind of audience? Of course we walk through the festival and say, this is what we're planning. These are the different elements, but what are you looking for in a sponsorship? What are you looking for to get your, some just want to be part of the community event, right? We have waterfront developers. They just want to show up and say, we're here, we're part of the community. And then other sponsors, for example, RBC, we've had them for our Sugar Shack event year over year. The first year they came on board because they just wanted to be part of the community event. Awesome. Second year, if we went in right away with the same pitch because they wanted to be part of the community event, we might not have secured it. So we said, let's do another discovery session. How have your objectives changed this year? And they ended up wanting to really talk to new Canadians. They said, we need a captivated audience. We want to get people signed up for branches, things like that. So we gave them our warming station where people are sitting, chatting, grabbing a cup of coffee, hanging out, and then they had people to directly talk to them. The next year we went again and we said, what are your objectives? How have they changed? They said, we're really into sports. We really want something sporty. So we gave them our obstacle course. So if we went in every year with the same warming station pitch or the same sports pitch, they would say, it's actually changed this year. We'd have to go back to the drawing board. So I really do think it's a collaboration of, yes, sometimes sponsors come to us and say, we're very interested in entertainment. We want your stage. But more often than not, it's let's have a discussion, see where you're at, see where we're at, and see what activation that we have on site or program that could fit perfectly. And then we do it all again the next year. But then at least you've had that historical knowledge with the sponsor. You've got that relationship, hopefully, that you can go in and have those discussions versus pitch, 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 pitch.
And Nick, I've really utilized some stuff that you've put forward about just mining data that's out there. You're talking about how you can find what investments are being made from a brand when it comes to Facebook and Twitter. Maybe you can dive into that for a minute.
Yeah, first of all, what Victoria just said is so on point. I think a big thing that people constantly get wrong in sponsorship is two things. One is, I know what your business wants based on some research. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell you what your business needs, and here's our assets. And if you've ever been on the other side of that meeting as a brand, there's nothing worse than when you have a brand new initiative and they're pitching you on community, right? The second, probably worse than that though, is if you're a sponsor and you're coming in for your second year, and it's the same package without a question of, are your goals changing? Sponsors get so upset with that, because really what sponsorship is an alignment of goals, and your job is to help them reach their goal. And you have a captivated audience and some activation assets to do that. So I think, as I give some of these digital tips, really understand that, my biggest pet peeve on any, conversation or sponsor pitch is coming in and saying like, hey, I know that banks are looking for, the ability to reach families. Here's 10 things, right? 9 times out of 10, the bank comes back and says, no, we have families on lock. We're good there. Like, that's our bread and butter. I'm paying you to reach this audience, right? So I think really, really important that whatever research you do, really understand that one, it's going to change year to year with sponsors. And that's really how you build that relationship and strengthen it, because that sponsor really understands they're not just trying to sell me something. They're trying to listen and understand my goals to help me as a marketing arm to help reach them. With that being said, I mean, there's obviously some research you can do. What I love to do first off is go to some of the press release websites that are out there in databases. You can just search for a company. Companies love announcing their new initiatives through press releases. Great reason to reach out, right? Instead of reaching out as a festival and saying, hey, we have assets and we reach these people and this is how many we reach. A quick cold email of saying, hey, I just saw you launch this new product line. Looks amazing. What are you guys doing for marketing? I just bring that up because we're able to reach a large amount of people in this community. And I think we could have some ideas there. That cold outreach is a lot better and will help you stand out a lot more just by understanding that. So PR, there's databases with press releases where you can type in a company name that, companies will let you know kind of, again, if they're putting a press release out, they're putting money behind this announcement, which means they probably have a budget to continue to market that. The second thing is there's a tool on Facebook called Facebook Ads Library. Facebook has actually open sourced and made available every single advertisement that a company page puts out and lets you see them. So if you go to Facebook Ad Library or just Google it, and then you can type in a company's basically Facebook page name. It can be as big as Toyota. It can be as small as Toyota Vancouver. And you're actually able to see which ads they're actively spending it. So we do this a lot with clients where, we're getting an activation together and they're about to pitch and they have some quick background, on the sponsor. We do take a quick look at Facebook Ad Library and we just basically see, hey, look, this casino is spending a ton of money on their loyalty program. So it's not necessarily getting people onto campus probably or on site at that casino. It's probably more likely they want to really drive people into loyalty customers. Once they have that information, again, going back to Victoria's point, you don't just walk in and say, hey, you want to get loyalty program customers. So here's 5 activations, right? You go in, you secure that meeting. Again, in that cold outreach, it could be, hey, I saw you've been promoting a lot on Facebook for your loyalty program. I have some ways that I think we can really boost that. Would love to have, grab coffee with you or a quick meeting. And then when you get into that meeting, it's, hey, again, as I reached out, loyalty program seems like a big piece for you. But for 2022, what are your biggest goals? What are the things that you're struggling with that are marketing goals for you? Because again, my job is to help you reach those goals. And marketers love to talk about their problems, right? It's like, man, we've been trying to hit this one category of customer for like 2 years. and we just can't tap into them. And like, if you have any ideas on this one type of customer, how you can reach them, I'm all ears, right? And then that's when you basically say, okay, great, that's amazing. I have some initial ideas I'll throw at you, but let me go back with my team and really create a package. And, you know, that's almost when the pitch comes in, right? To where you're actually saying, hey, look, now I really know your goals. Yes, we can look at some awareness things and pieces like that. But if this is your main goal, then we really want to make sure that the story I'm telling you is, here's this visitor that walks into your festival. What are the steps that they're going to take toward your goal? Whether it's visiting the booth to get a sign up, whether it's getting a free sample, whether it's after the, you know, event or sports game, I want to get you into a store purchasing something. What are those steps and how can I help you reach them? And if you tell that story, then you'll close a lot more business than if you came in and said, hey, here are my assets. I see that you're new in the area. So, you know, we're going to get you some awareness assets. Really diving deep with them and again, asking that key question, which is, look, you all have marketing goals. What are those marketing goals this year? What are the ones that you're struggling with? I would love to help you with them. And sometimes you get on that meeting with all the information and the brand's just like, you know, we're just looking to buy signage, to be honest. I just like your festival. I like your space and we want to be a part of it. You know, don't push too hard on saying, I really need to find your goal, right? But at the same time, you know, if you have the ability, especially, I can't emphasize this enough. If you're a small festival, that's how you win. If you're a small sports team, that's how you win. Because a lot of the bigger ones will come in and just do blanket coverage. They'll come in and do the blanket coverage pitch. And, you know, again, I bring up the Winterhawks because they do this so well in Portland. They have huge sponsors that spend large amounts of money for a junior hockey team. And it's purely because the way that they do sponsorships is they go in and they really understand, what is your goal? What unique things do I have? And then pitch it in a way to say, here's when a fan walks into the stadium. Here's when they walk out. Where does your, you know, how many times can I hit you toward that sponsor goal to reach that? And building that into a storytelling pitch really closes the deal to where a lot of times it comes down to, okay, great, I love this. What are the package? What's the prices? How much? How do we activate this?
Yeah, and I think that picks up into a question that that Paul posted into the chat is, you know, are companies actively seeking sponsorship opportunities, or is it usually a cold call approach? And I think, you know, it's always been a challenge because the decision makers are busy. And I think they're even busier now since COVID because the teams have gotten leaner. That cyclically, they might be out looking for specific sponsorship opportunities, or their agencies are looking for sponsorship opportunities. But I think it is that cold call reach. It's getting a meeting not to do the sale, but to learn about what they're doing and then building out what are their pain points from there. Because you need to be able to identify the pain points to help them in their job, as opposed to just sending a deck. And so, I mean, you've got a lot of outreach you've been getting from agencies now, Victoria, but is that a mix of direct from sponsors, or is that more agencies coming with a plan?
I think, I'm trying to think back as that, because I saw that question being asked, if we have ever been approached by a big company. And I don't think we have. It's always being approached by the XM agencies because they are doing outreach now for summer festival tours. So a lot of XM agencies, experiential marketing agencies, will say, okay, our client Tim Hortons has their truck and they want to get to 7 different events this summer. Here's where they're going across Ontario. We're going to now do the research. And it's great, but it's also, you're one of 25 events that they're reaching out to. So that's where you show how unique you are and all that, but we're really working with the middle person. However, where I do find where I think some of the smaller festivals and events or even larger ones can benefit is I do find that if there's new developers, if there's new businesses in your area, that's when I get people directly coming out to us saying, hey, we've just come to the waterfront. We're going to be here for 10, 20, whatever years. We have a massive, head office that's just gone in. We would love to be part of this community event. What can we do? And so I love those because they're coming directly to me. But the RBCs aren't doing that. The Scotiabanks aren't doing that. The Coca-Colas aren't doing that. So I think if you have constantly see in your area, is there new businesses, even small businesses just want to be there to support and help, but make those relationships and reach out to any sort of new developments or companies that, to be honest, did well during COVID. That's kind of how we do it as well. Companies that did really well in COVID are the ones more approaching us, like developments. I mean, look at lumber companies, look at landscape companies, any sort of home reno. So it's kind of a mix, but it's very rare for the big guys to come directly to us.
And I think from my experience, sometimes you'll approach a sponsorship manager and their job has always been to say no, because they're trying to manage the platform that they've got and they've only got so much on their plate. So being able to look at whether it's a LinkedIn search, whether it's using a platform like ours, to say who else is in the organization. And some of the mining that I've seen using your Facebook techniques, Nick, is looking at the Ford Facebook page. It's not them selling cars, it's all service. So now I need to be talking to service managers, because that's going to get me around the person who said no to the person who actually has a pain point, and I can actually have a conversation about where they need to move the dial.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further there, and Brad, this with me on LinkedIn, really doing some of that research, and then even before your outreach, if you're able to create content just around why your festival, why your organization is perfect for service, right? So if you're able to write a quick article on LinkedIn, connect with the people, obviously, who you're trying to target, and then create some content that's going to be helpful for them, right? Where it's going to be, top 5 best ways to reach visitors at a festival when it comes to auto service, right? And you're able to give your expertise. That really, really helps increase that inbound, right? It really helps you have the ability as, let's say, a smaller festival, be able to build a relationship even before you outbound that. So I think, even before you reach out, or even before somebody comes in, if you're able to create some sort of online presence for your organization that gives helpful tips on the best way to utilize your sponsorship assets, it goes a long way toward building that relationship, so that when that sponsorship manager who has no time for anything reads your article on LinkedIn, reads your post on, Twitter, whatever that may be, they may not have time for a cold call, but they read that article and they're like, you know what? We do need to boost our auto service, parts of our sponsorship activation. I really like what this person said in this article. Let's really dive into what festival they have. Is it something we want to get into? And that's where you'll get some of that sort of inbound sort of search. So again, especially if you're a smaller festival, you kind of have to do things a little bit unconventionally, just because, those sponsorship managers are getting hit up every single day with, here's this event, here's who's reaching, here's this event. And again, there's nothing wrong with cold outreach. Cold outreach mixed with context, again, doing your research and understanding, I think this is what you'd probably be most interested in, is really valuable. But if there's other ways that you can sort of prime them before you even reach out with some of your knowledge base, I mean, even creating a quick landing page on your website that you can share on social that breaks down every category and just is a brain trust around partnerships at festivals that says, auto, here's the best things we've seen. Here's how we see, visitors react. And you create a knowledge base that may take you a week to create, right? Get some of the people who are salespeople or activation people, have them quickly write an article on the top 5 things that you see that are successful with, boothing or whatever that may be, and then posting that online. You'd be surprised how long that content lives, but also how much it can really bring in some big customers as well. So, again, whether you're big or small, it's something you should be doing. But I think we're in a world right now of a lot of direct cold outreach because, technology has made it so you can do it very easily at scale to reach out to, the top 5 banks, everybody who's in the sponsorship department. I think really, if you're able to, take some time, build some content, that helps build your relationship even before you reach out, that first time.
Yeah, and I think, some people get scared when you say article, but I think it doesn't have to be a 500,000 word article. It can just be a top 10 with infographics, and that's probably even more effective because it's a quick read.
Our most successful article around sponsorship that actually brings in the most traffic and the most inbounds is like 4 headlines with 2 paragraphs each. And it's just, hey, this is great information that helps you unlock a lot of stuff. It doesn't have to be a novel, right? You don't have to write an ebook, create a course. It can just be your sponsorship activation manager getting a few notes off their head when you ask them the question based on, our experience, your experience of working with the auto brands as you've done. It's the 5 best ways they can get in front of your customers or our visitors. And that may take an hour to write, but again, the long tail value of that is so beneficial because then, I don't want to use the term thought leader, but really what it is you're building trust with your prospect before you get into sales mode. In the same way, you don't want to come in and just pitch on a meeting. You can actually, even before you come in on a cold email, be known to them because they've read your article or seen some sort of post on Twitter or whatever that may be. And that really can go far, again, especially if you're smaller, not as well-known property, to building that trust and really getting in front of some pretty interesting prospects.
Peter's dropped a question into the Q&A just about timing for approach for sponsorship. And I know traditionally pre-COVID, when it comes to sponsorship budgets, 40% of budgets are traditionally landed sort of October, November every year. So you need to be in advance of that. Definitely COVID has shifted that. I've found a lot of people have been restricted in their COVID budgets because it's a matter of when their HR departments will allow them to engage live again. So now they're starting to turn on those dollars as they're coming up. So it's more of a learning process about when to approach. And I think, if you're moving beyond the sponsorship manager, it's when are those brand manager needs. So Victoria, do you have any thoughts on timing and when does work for you?
So hard, and I hate to use the word, it's a case-by-case basis, or, but I feel like if it's of importance to the sponsor, they can move things around and make it happen. I have seen that, but we sometimes, we're right now working with a sponsor for 2023. And I don't want to scare people and be like, it's an 18-month game, but sometimes it is because you have to create those relationships. So some companies do everything in Q1 and they've got all their budgets set for the whole year. And if we come to them for our event, they're like, sorry, budgets are set. I think the difficult thing that I struggle with my producer hat on as the festival is we don't know what our programming is 18 months out sometimes, right? Like we know right now that in 2025, we're bringing the tall ships. So I could technically start pitching that now. But, we're getting sponsors on board. We need government grants. So we all know the wonderful government grant stress and process. And we sometimes don't know if we have the money until a certain point. So we don't know if we can bring that big ticket item. So I hate to say that it's case by case, but really I have found that I sometimes in the column in my targeting and my pitching, I will start to put, I'll make a note if a sponsor said, come to me next year in September, that's when we do our budgets, then I have to do that. And it's just being super organized and knowing to check in even in before Christmas, send a note to all your potential sponsors. Hey, just checking in, we're planning ahead for next year and blah, blah, blah. What is your, how's it going? Like do a check-in and just see and do a temperature check and say, we're coming back. We'd love to get a conversation on the books in the new year. So yeah, sorry, Peter, I hate to say it's not one size fits all, but yeah, that's kind of my experience is you just kind of got to be organized and put those notes when you hear back from a sponsor, when is best for them. And then you start to pitch them on their deadlines.
Yeah, and I think depending on the sponsor, sometimes it's great to have an ongoing conversation with them, that not every contact point is an ask, because then you get, an ongoing temperature check for where they are. I think back to Michael Rossi when he was with Adidas, did a presentation to SMCC about I guess 2 or 3 years ago, and they had gone all in on sports sponsorship, and then they realized their sales were tanking against Nike because Nike had gone sports and entertainment sponsorship. So they had all of these, different musicians wearing their shoes, and they had to spin on a dime to figure out, okay, how are we going to change the marketing? So you wouldn't know that by your 1 year check-in. You'd have to have that ongoing conversation and see where those pain points are. And Nick, any thoughts from your end?
Yeah, I think, timing's interesting. You have to be in the long game in sponsorship, and it's because nothing's worse. And gosh, I think back to my early days at sponsorship sales and all the dumb things that I did. And one of the dumbest things I would do is I would come back and try to get the sponsor on my timeline, right? And say, hey, look, festival or, opening day is coming up in 2 weeks. I know you're interested. I know you told me your budgets are already set, but I really want to get you in on this because it's going to be an amazing season. And, if you've ever been on the brand side, the budget is the budget. Getting a budget changed is multiple meetings, multiple phone calls, putting your, honestly putting your reputation on the line to say, I want to totally change our budget to this thing purely because I think it's going to work, right? If that thing doesn't work and reach their goals, you've now hurt your relationship instead of being in it for the long game and saying, hey, totally get it. I want to still have this conversation with you. Sounds like your budgets are, created Q4, Q1. I'm going to check in Q3 with some exciting things, see where you're at. And then we can kind of go from there. And it's amazing how much you can gain value or a relationship when you help make it easier for your sponsor to say yes, right? When you wait that 12 months, when you come in at Q3 and say, hey, I know budgets are coming up. I'm giving you a quick ping. Here's what's on our roster. Here's what I know we have. There may be some things change here. I'd love to talk with you about allocating 50 to 100K, for some of these assets. If you come to them at the right time, they're going to be so, thankful that one, you reminded them that this is something that they should be looking at, but two, working on their timeline to make it easier. So again, as we talk about things on why sponsors will say yes, timing is a key thing. And, in order to get the right timing, especially if you're reaching out for the first time and you don't know when that budget's being set, you're going to have to play the long game. You're going to have to be totally fine if a sponsor says, look, budgets are set. And sometimes sponsors say budgets are set when they're not set, and it's a cop out and they just really don't want to invest in, your sponsorship package or assets. But being in the long game and saying, hey, totally fine, I get it. I'm going to check back in at this date, builds that relationship, builds that trust, and makes it easier for them, as opposed to, again, I used to do it of, hey, our budgets are set. Okay, great, cool. I'll check in, in 2 weeks. Well, no, check in next December. Okay, great. 2 weeks later, hey, our season's coming up. We have this last minute, scoreboard signage. I really want to get you in. That's when it gets really salesy and actually hurts that relationship. So I think timing can be a superpower as long as you're in it for the long game and you understand this is a 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year process with this sponsor, even if I don't close them in the first 2 years, as opposed to saying, I need to get them in now. And I'm going to basically push my agenda on them as far as timing goes.
And I think that really, that salesy approach can be detrimental. Even if you close a sale, it'll be smaller than what you would have got if you played the long game, and you won't get a renewal unless you magically turn it around.
Yeah, you like if you get them to part with, like I've been on the bad end of this. You get them to change budget, which is multiple conversations, which is somebody putting their neck out on the line, and then it doesn't perform massively. Not even just up to what they wanted, because they did all this work to change budget, and now it doesn't perform. You've been salesy. You've basically got them in on a transaction, and then it didn't work out. You may not get that business year one, but it's probably, lifetime value 10 times more if you just waited that year as opposed to rushing them in, them seeing the value, and then that sponsor never working with you again.
Liz has put a question in, and I'm just going to interpret it a little bit because I know you really work in this space a lot, Nick. How do you deal with affiliate marketing sponsorships?
Those are fun. I think one, affiliates can be great if you can make them feel authentic. I mean, let's put it this way. Influencers are affiliate marketers, right? Now, sometimes they have affiliate links. Sometimes brands believe in them enough to pay them just for the branding and then the affiliate link. But, affiliate link, sponsors that come to you with just affiliate links aren't totally sold on your value, right? You haven't fully sold them on my sponsorship package is going to return for you. So they're hedging a bet. They're basically saying, hey, here's these affiliate links. You know, we want to see some movement there. I think I'd be cautious about affiliate links. And I think if you do affiliate links, you need to, if you only do affiliate links, you need to really understand two things. One is to seriously ask yourself, if I put this link up, even if it's a very authentic story on social media, are people going to buy it? Because as soon as you get into the frame of, we are judging the success of this partnership purely on how many sales you get through this affiliate link, it's a very dangerous, slope, because if you don't produce on that, it's going to be very stressful. So I think be careful with it. It's not something that's going to be end all be all. You don't have to say, no, we don't do affiliate links, but I think try and build into the story of, look, you could get anybody to throw a link up. What I want to do is really introduce you to our audience. So let's build in some awareness posts so it doesn't feel salesy. Let's build in this very, very authentic, Facebook segment that also is going to have the affiliate link in it, and build a package around that. And again, have it make more context. If you only do affiliates, you're basically putting yourself in the realm of a TikTok influencer, right? Now you're competing with TikTok influencers, with Snapchat influencers, things like that. And totally fine if you want to do that, but you better make sure you move units for them, because then they're only going to judge your sponsorship package only on that affiliate link.
And do you run into that at all, Victoria, with vendors trying to do a split on their sales?
Not for vendors. We just pay to be on site, and you keep what you get for food trucks and all that. The only time we've tried this is when, so we have water taxis on the waterfront, and when the Duck was here, or when the tall ships are here, if you want to be our official water taxi and we'll promote you as that, we want a certain percentage of your sales. They could say, no, we're just going to do it anyway and take people around. We don't own the water. We permit certain areas for the dock wall, but I would really caution against it. Because to be honest, Liz, it is a bit of a trust thing, because you don't know how much sales they're going to get. And so we've done this with a few very, very small sponsors, and it didn't really work. So I would just say, this is how much the space costs, you're there or not. And otherwise you pay a sponsorship fee and you get these benefits, unless you really, really trust the sponsor or the vendor. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
I know we've got a couple minutes left, and probably left the one of the biggest topics that is always avoided by people to a short amount of time. But I think showing proof is such a big deal. Somebody, as Nick was saying, somebody's put their neck out for you, and you've got to be able to justify why they've given you $5, $50, $100,000, because they've got to report into their boss. So I guess how important do you guys feel it is to report back on results, and is a generic report enough, or does it need to be tailored?
For me, a generic report would not be enough. I would definitely tailor it to the sponsor, but I would still include the same things that I give to all sponsors. So if you've seen me in person at FEO, I always bring my post-event audits. Reach out to me after this, and I'm more than happy to send people examples of our post-event audits, but it includes everything from marketing, PR, social, Google Analytics, what the numbers were on site for each sponsor, so that I can show that Redpath Sugar handed out 19,000 cookies. Like, some companies keep that very quiet, and I don't like to, because if if they handed out 19,000 cookies, I don't see why that couldn't benefit another company next year when they say, cool, I can hand out whatever. So a big thing for us is data. And I know for a lot of the government grants that a lot of the festivals and events that are on this call have to do, data is a massive thing. It's very easy to do. You don't have to spend a lot of money. We do paper surveys. We still do paper surveys. iPads, we tried one year and it was a massive not successful. I know technology is the new thing, QR codes, but I really swear by paper surveys. Give 10 to people while they're sitting, watching their show, all anonymous. Some suggestions for questions. I'm more than happy to talk with anybody if you have specific questions you need. But other than all of the data questions that are asked for the government grants, for those sponsors that are really, really, really big, really important, you can add a question, and it doesn't have to be for that sponsor. It could be, you know, have you moved to Canada in the last 5 years? If you have a sponsor that wants new Canadians, there you go. If it's, oh, I see Rob there, because Rob and I just had a whole chat about data and surveys. But if you also want to say, have you bought a car in the last 4 years? Are you looking to change your brand of car? You know, do you have a sponsor that's super important that you want to report back on? So yeah, absolutely. 80% paper surveys on site, 20% online afterwards. And that's the kind of info that our sponsors like to see the most. They want to see if the people you projected were going to be on site and who they had access to. And then individually, the sponsors will also do their own post reporting, right? They'll say, of all of the people we handed out to, we had X number of, you know, females, males, other ages, all that. So they'll have their own reporting that you can ask for. I always ask my sponsors, give me your data from on site. And I've never had pushback except for like maybe twice.
And what's your thoughts on it?
Biggest thing here is you are competing with digital ads. And I think what a lot of people in sponsorship don't understand, that on Facebook ads, you can see how much you spent and your return on ad sales in real time, right? So I think when people ask me why is data so important, well, this marketer is deciding, do I do it in person, or do I, you know, run social ads? Do I run Google ads? Do I run, you know, digital ads? The benefits that digital ads have is that data in real time to be able to iterate and make decisions. If you don't have that in today's world of sponsorship and advertising, they're going to kind of sit there and say, should I invest in this if we don't even know if we're reaching the right people? So again, as Victoria said, it's not hard to get some of this data. You can get a lot of it without a lot of push, but just remember, if you don't have data, you're competing with Facebook ads, Snapchat ads, Google ads. They do have that data, and you're already coming at a place of, you know, not having as much value there if you don't have it.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Victoria. Fantastic to do this. I know, Dave, thank you for letting us run a minute late, and I will hand it back to you.
Yeah, no problem. I was just going to say, great session, a lot of good information. I had jotted down a couple other things just to remind everybody about, and one of them is that, you know, instead of going to sponsors every single year, you know, go towards those multi-year contracts too, so that you're not in front of the same person, you know, every September, that you've got a long-term goal of, you know, what are you going to do over the next 2 to 5 years, and you know, make it easy for both of you. The other one, and I've been involved with a few not-for-profits that didn't do it, but just the importance of a signed contract. And, you know, getting 50% on signing the contract and 50% on deliverables makes you accountable. And, you know, for all of us, we're all in a cash-strapped situation. So getting some of that money up front to help you get your event through are good ways to do it. So a lot of great information. You could probably go on for days and days about this stuff, but thank you very much, Brad, Victoria, and Nick. Some great information.